Before you scroll away, ask yourself one question. What if the message you've been waiting for your entire life has already reached you? Not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now. Most people will ignore this moment and move on. A few will listen, but only a handful will truly understand why these words feel strangely familiar. Maybe that's because this isn't just another video. Maybe it's a reminder that every setback, every delay, and every unexpected turn has been preparing you to hear something you couldn't have understood before today. So don't rush, because if this message finds you at the right moment, it might change the way you see everything that happens next. And the first clue has been hiding in your life much longer than you think. Have you ever wondered why certain words seem ordinary one day, yet somehow become unforgettable the next? The message itself may not have changed, but something inside you has. There are moments in life when experience quietly reshapes the way you see the world. A setback teaches patience. A disappointment reveals hidden strength. A season of uncertainty forces you to ask questions you never thought to ask before. At the time, those moments often feel confusing, even unfair. But looking back, they become the chapters that prepared you for a deeper understanding. Some messages don't arrive when we want them to. They arrive when we've grown enough to recognize their meaning. Think about the person you were a few years ago. Would these same words have held the same weight? Or would they have sounded like just another idea before disappearing into the noise of everyday life? Growth changes more than our circumstances. It changes our perspective. The experiences you've lived through have quietly expanded your awareness, allowing you to notice things that once escaped your attention. What once looked like an ordinary moment can suddenly feel deeply significant, not because the world changed overnight, but because you did. Perhaps that is why this message feels different. Not because it contains some hidden secret, but because your journey has slowly prepared you to hear it in a way your past self never could. Every challenge, every unanswered question, and every unexpected turn has shaped the person listening right now. But if this message found you today, what changed inside you that finally made you ready to hear it? Because the answer doesn't begin with the message itself. It begins with the quiet signs that have been following you much longer than you realize. And almost everyone overlooks them. Have you ever looked back on your life and realized that the moments which changed you the most didn't seem important when they first happened? A conversation you almost ignored, a door that unexpectedly closed, a delay that completely changed your plans. At the time, they felt random, sometimes even frustrating. But with distance comes a different perspective. Suddenly, those scattered moments begin connecting like pieces of a puzzle you never knew you were building. What once looked like coincidence starts to feel like preparation. Not because life was following a script, but because growth has a way of revealing meaning that can only be seen in hindsight. The truth is, the biggest changes in our lives rarely arrive with loud announcements. They often begin quietly, almost invisibly. A question you can't stop thinking about, a new way of looking at an old problem, a growing sense that the life you've been living no longer fits the person you're becoming. These aren't dramatic events, which is exactly why they're so easy to overlook. Most people spend their lives waiting for extraordinary signs while missing the quiet moments that slowly reshape who they are. Awareness doesn't usually arrive like lightning. It arrives like sunrise, gradually revealing what was already there. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself. Something you once dismissed as meaningless now carries a completely different significance. A lesson you resisted has become wisdom you rely on every day. A setback that once felt like failure now looks like the turning point that pushed you toward growth. The signs were never trying to force you in a particular direction. They were quietly inviting you to pay closer attention to the person you were becoming. But here's the mystery that changes everything. If the signs have always been there, why do some people recognize them while others walk past them without ever noticing? Because the answer isn't hidden in the signs themselves. It's hidden in the way we choose to see them. There is something strange about the way we experience delays. While we're living through them, they often feel like obstacles standing between us and the life we want. We question them. We resist them. We wonder why everything seems to be moving for everyone else while our own path feels uncertain. But time has a remarkable way of changing our perspective. Looking back, many of the moments we once called setbacks become the very experiences that protected us from rushing into the wrong chapter. What seemed like an interruption slowly reveals itself as preparation. Not preparation for a perfect life, but for a wiser version of yourself, someone capable of making decisions with greater clarity than ever before. Imagine receiving everything you wanted years before you had the experience to handle it. Would you have appreciated it? Would you have recognized its value? Or would you have lost it simply because you weren't yet ready? Growth rarely happens while everything is comfortable. It happens when life gently pushes us beyond familiar patterns. Every disappointment teaches resilience. Every unexpected ending creates room for a different beginning. Every unanswered question invites us to look deeper instead of settling for easy explanations. The delay itself isn't the lesson. It creates the space where the lesson can finally take root. And once that lesson becomes part of you, your entire perspective begins to change. Perhaps this is why your journey unfolded exactly as it did. Not because every event was planned, but because every experience gave you an opportunity to grow into someone who sees life differently. The person you are today carries wisdom that your past self simply didn't have. What once felt like wasted time may actually have been the season that quietly prepared you for the choices now standing before you. But here's the question that changes everything. What if every delay was leading to one moment that couldn't have happened any sooner? Because the next chapter isn't about waiting for another sign. It's about recognizing that the choice you've been preparing for may already be standing in front of you. There comes a moment in every journey when no new sign appears, no perfect answer arrives, and no voice tells you exactly what to do next. There is only a quiet realization that you've reached a crossroads. One path leads back to the comfort of what you've always known. The other leads toward growth, uncertainty, and a future you cannot fully see. Most people believe that life changes because they receive one extraordinary opportunity. But in reality, life often changes because of one ordinary decision made with extraordinary courage. The turning point is rarely the moment the opportunity appears. It is the moment you decide to respond differently than you would have in the past. Think about the biggest changes you've ever experienced. They probably didn't begin with complete confidence. They began with a choice. A choice to keep going when quitting felt easier. A choice to let go of something familiar. A choice to trust yourself even when the outcome was uncertain. Looking back, those decisions became the foundation of everything that followed. They didn't remove every challenge, but they changed the direction of your life. That's the quiet power of awareness. Once you begin seeing life through a different perspective, your choices begin changing naturally. And those choices slowly create a future that once seemed impossible to imagine. Perhaps this is the message that has been waiting for you all along. Not a prediction about what will happen tomorrow, but a reminder that your next chapter is shaped by the decisions you make today. Every experience you've lived through has given you new wisdom. Every obstacle has strengthened your ability to recognize opportunities that your past self might have ignored. The question is no longer whether you're ready for a different future. The real question is whether you're willing to trust the person you've become enough to take the next step. But before the journey reaches its final revelation, one question still remains unanswered. What if this message was never meant to tell you what the future holds, but to completely transform the way you see this very moment? And because that's where the final truth begins to reveal itself. For most of our lives, we're taught to look ahead. We spend years wondering what tomorrow will bring, hoping the future will finally answer the questions that trouble us today. We search for signs, waiting for the perfect moment that will remove every doubt and reveal exactly where we're supposed to go. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if the most important message was never meant to tell you what will happen next? What if its real purpose was to change the way you see it at this moment? Because the way you understand today will shape every tomorrow that follows. Imagine reading the same book at different stages of your life. The words stay exactly the same, yet each time you read them they reveal something completely new. Not because the story changed, but because you did. Life works in much the same way. The world around you may look familiar, but your perspective quietly transforms with every lesson you've learned. Suddenly, situations that once felt like burdens become opportunities to grow. Conversations you would have ignored begin to carry unexpected meaning. Even silence no longer feels empty. It becomes a space where clarity has room to appear. The message wasn't waiting for the future to arrive. It was waiting for you to become the person capable of seeing the present differently. Perhaps that's why this moment feels strangely significant. Not because it predicts what's about to happen, but because it invites you to pause and recognize how far you've already come. Every challenge you've overcome has strengthened your judgment. Every disappointment has deepened your understanding. Every difficult chapter has quietly shaped the person sitting here today. The future hasn't changed yet, but you have. And sometimes that single realization is powerful enough to change everything that comes next. But one final truth still remains. If this message was never about changing your future, then what has been changing all along? Because the answer isn't found in what lies ahead. It's found in the person you've been becoming through every step of the journey, and that final realization brings everything together. Now we've reached the final part of this journey, and perhaps the greatest surprise is that the message was never trying to tell you something you didn't already have the ability to discover. It wasn't sent to replace your judgment or make your choices for you. It was an invitation to pause long enough to notice how much you've already changed. Think back to the person you were when this journey began. The fears that once controlled your decisions may not carry the same weight anymore. The questions that once kept you awake at night may no longer seem impossible to answer. Even if your circumstances haven't completely changed, your perspective has. And sometimes that quiet inner shift is the beginning of every meaningful transformation. The greatest changes in life often happen long before anyone else can see them. Perhaps you've spent years believing that the breakthrough would arrive as one unforgettable moment that would instantly change everything. But real transformation rarely works that way. It happens gradually, one decision at a time. Every challenge you've faced has strengthened your resilience. Every disappointment has expanded your understanding. Every setback has taught you something that success never could. Looking back, you may realize that the moments you once wanted to erase became the very experiences that prepared you to live with greater wisdom and clarity. The message didn't appear because your journey was ending. It appeared because your journey had shaped you into someone capable of seeing life differently. What once felt like confusion has become understanding. What once looked like failure has become experience. And what once felt like waiting has become preparation. So before this video ends, ask yourself one final question. If this message had reached you 5 years ago, would you have truly understood it? Or would you have dismissed it and moved on without a second thought? Sometimes the most meaningful ideas don't change our lives because they're extraordinary. They change our lives because we encounter them at the moment we're finally ready to understand them. That's why this wasn't really a message about higher beings or about predicting the future. It was about recognizing your own capacity to grow, reflect, and choose your next step with greater awareness than ever before. And maybe that's the final message you've been searching for. The moment you stop waiting for life to transform you is often the moment you realize you've already been transforming all along. The next chapter doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins with the very next choice you make.